it's always with the intention that this is the way and this is, the, I guess, most effective way. But as you've shown in your book, this isn't the most effective way. Most people do not get better after going into these treatments, whether it be forced hospitalization or drugging. So, but the chemical imbalance theory as it is was so popularized by the drug industry. So is this interplay with, I guess, the continual momentum behind this biochemical theory that allows all these systemic situations to be set up so neatly for this forced drug and forced hospitalization? I mean, does big pharma have this much weight in our world?
It's a great question, and I was really glad that the publisher, an American publisher, agreed when I made the case that we should keep including Canada, though, as well, because we have these two different, very different healthcare systems.
Mm,
The American system is much more profit oriented overall. Not that it doesn't exist at all in Canada, but certainly Canada has a more a much more robust public healthcare system. And yet, we see the same trends occurring in both countries. So I think that's relevant to this question.
yep.
In my mind, it's fairly clear when you look at the evidence that the pharmaceutical industry and the enormous amounts of money that are going to universities, to the American Psychiatric Association, the Canadian Psychiatric Association, to all of these sort of medical personnel and researchers, and then flowing out into news media through advertising and everything else, that money is clearly having a huge influence on how people understand what a mental health problem is, how we should respond to it. That said, the buy-in is really really widespread and goes beyond that, right? We can't just
Yeah.
set this all down to sort of corrupt manipulation by an industry. It's like the industry has successfully exploited a certain tendencies in our culture. I think some of
Mm,
those tendencies, the desire for the quick fix,
yeah.
the notion that somehow all of our human suffering can be attributed to a simple little imbalance that, oh, I can just take a drug and I'll be a happy person for the rest of my life. There's a way in which that can be quite enticing to a lot of people. And so there are all these other things, just the genuine desire to help and the lack of tools
Yeah.
available. Because the reality is the evidence isn't that strong that non-drug techniques really help people in distress all that much better than the drugs do. And the evidence isn't very strong for the drugs either when you really look into it. Human distress is a universal thing,
Yeah.
and it's existed for time immemorial, right? And so
Right.
there's a way in which, to some degree, we need to kind of come to terms with what it is. And what we've done, which is very dangerous, and I kind of mention this in the book, is say, we've taken a metaphor, the notion of health, right? And we might say, well, it's important that we have an economically healthy nation. Everybody could agree with that. Sure. The devil is in the details. What do we really mean when we say healthy economy? Well, we aren't doing that. We somehow stop doing that when we say, oh, everybody should be mentally healthy and we should help them in their mental health, because it was really just a metaphor in the beginning, but now it's become medical. And
Mm,
it is really, and you see this, and I think this is one of the major political crises we're dealing with right now. Is even 20 years ago when I started doing this research, it was much easier to find psychologists, psychotherapists,
yes.
counselors, people who were not drug trained medical professionals who would speak out critically about overdrugging, about pathologization and medicalization
Yes.
of these kinds of issues. Well, they've been co opted as well now,
Yeah.
partly through coercion, because they have to. Insurance requires them to pathologize people in order to bill. So that's something that these people have been coerced into. But they've also sort of decided, hey, we're all making more money. We all kind of move ahead as an industry by collaborating rather than fighting. And so you can see that laid out very clearly in these child and youth education programs for mental health. by, the first few pages are all about, oh, talk to your friends, and hey, everybody has problems, it's totally normal, support each other. And then by page 3 or 4, but if it lasts for more than a week or two, you could have a biomedical problem, you need to see a professional, and here are how these drugs help. And you'll see it all laid out in the same program. And that's kind of like the story of our society right there, right now.
Yeah.
It's all been thrown together into this one little sort of slippery slope into medicalization and then ultimately into coercion and force.
Yeah.